righty, Mr. Pitt. Final go.
All righty indeed. Final go. And look at the sunshine behind me. Well,
Yeah.
as near as we get in sunshine, but it's relatively nice.
Yes. Well, it's springtime. And I just cannot fathom that this is where we are, but it's awesome. It's been an honor to be asked by the Lord to do something such as this. We are today in Matthew 14, 22 to 23, 13. And I did some calculating because, and we'll get there as we go along here, but there's always, and especially in Matthew, there's that part where Peter says he's the Christ, and then he gets rebuked, Satan, get behind me. And they're like smushed together. But did they happen like that? And so I was calculating out, and I literally used this week's readings. I said, okay, Matthew 14, 22 to 23, 13. And it said 6 to 8 months time frame.
Okay.
Yeah, that stuff is always so extra helpful for me to know that it's not just one thing after another. And you kind of know that in the back of your mind. But do you know it? I know that Jamie and I talked about it, and maybe Jill and I did too. I love the fact that evidently in Matthew is the only one that talks about Peter walking on the water. But I know that we talked about it when I was talking with someone else about the fact that Peter does get out of the boat. But Matthew's the only one that records all those details, which was sort of interesting to me.
Yeah. And actually, the great thing of the walking is there's, to me, and I think you did comment on it when you discussed it last time, that when Jesus walks out in the water, the only way to read it, in my view, is just Jesus going for a stroll. He's just going for a walk. He's like, why not? And it just happens to be on the sea as opposed to being on the grass, as you do.
Yes, as he can do. But
yes.
Evidently we can too if we have faith, because Peter does it for a bit anyway. So Peter's denial of Christ has to be just devastating as a human. And yet Peter was so brassy. He's the one that gets out of the boat, and he's the one that and he blurts out dumb stuff. But, the he's trying, he's going for it. And I love that.
Yeah. It's almost as if he lets himself just go and all these things, he doesn't think about it. He just does, and off he goes. And then when he does think about it, then he gets scared. So then he starts thinking of the water. When he does think about it, then he starts denying Jesus. It's like, for you and your style, Peter, just go with it.
Yeah. It's always a bit of encouragement in terms of my always being irreverent and brassy and the wrong way and stuff. Just go, girl. You love Jesus. It's all right. We'll figure it out. But anyway, so what have you got in 15?
15, right along to verses 37, 38. They all ate and were satisfied. The disciples picked up 7 basketfuls of broken pieces left over. There were 5,000 fed in the Jewish area on the first story. And were fed in the Gentile area. So it's showing it's inclusive for everyone. Everyone gets to have a feast. It's not just the Jews, the select people. They get the picnic and nobody else does. Everybody is. And 7 loaves in 7 baskets. There's completeness. And they get that 7 loaves on the second one when the Gentiles get it. So that is saying, and this is complete.
Ah, I love it. Very good. Very good insight. Very. So here we have the Syrophoenician woman that Matthew calls a Canaanite woman specifically, which I thought was very interesting. And it says Jesus went away from there and withdrew to the district of Tyre and Sidon. And you have the same story, a couple maybe different details, slightly different, but at the end of the day, it's the same thing. She's there to get healing for her child, and she doesn't hold back, and she gets the healing, and her daughter was healed instantly at the end of verse 28. But I just thought it was so interesting that he called her a Canaanite woman. And I did some Googling, and there isn't any particular reasoning. There is supposedly, from Matthew's perspective, a more priestly focus on Jesus than Mark's. And I guess I don't have enough subtlety to pick those things up. One version versus the other, one gospel versus the other. But I thought it was interesting because in my mind, and oftentimes if I'm reading through the gospels, I will default to Matthew almost always. You and I were talking about that last time where there was something where Gadarenes. Yeah. And that's Matthew's word, that's Mark's word, not Matthew's. Whereas Mark is the one that calls her a Syrophoenician woman. And I think that's a little bit more helpful in my mind, because Canaanites is, whether they're Hivites, Jebusites, Perizzites, they're all Canaanites. And they're not. but it's like, oh, the whole castle of them is Canaanites, whereas she is Syrophoenician, which actually Syria and Phoenicia makes sense in my modern brain, basically.
Yeah. Matthew 16, verse 4, where it talks about the wicked and adulterous generation looks for a sign, but none will be given it except the sign of Jonah. Now, I've always thought this was a wee bit of judgment coming in. You're wicked, you're adulterous, and all you're going to get is the sign of Jonah. So there. But rereading it for this video, I had my Damascus moment for this verse, because I realized that the sign of Jonah is a warning and an invitation to repent. It's not a judgment. It's a warning and an invitation. It's death and being consumed and surrounded for darkness for 3 days. And it's also rebirth and a people being saved by the words and the actions of one person. So as what was the sign of Jonah? Jonah gave the warning. He tried to suffer away in the whale, etc. That was his death bit, as it were. And then the rebirthing. And so that warning of Jonah, that sign, Jonah was a sign for what Jesus actually did, which was to die, to spend 3 days under, and then to come back and save everyone. So
Yeah.
it's sort of, it's not judgment.
Right. Well, and the Ninevites repent. And then you have that very end of Jonah that no one talks about, where he's under the plant and pissy and spiteful about the whole thing. Well, I knew you were a good God, and kind of thing. And people, it's all you can hear about is the whale or the fish, because it does say translation is fish. But, and you will appreciate this, Mr. Pitt, how the plagues match up to Egyptian gods. Evidently, did you tell me this? Or did I?
Yeah.
Anyway, the Ninevites' god was a fish?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so it was you. Sorry, I'm telling you something. I heard this from a friend of mine.
Did you?
Oh,
A
how
very
funny.
intelligent
Yes.
friend, very clever person.
But when the fish barfs him up on the beach, it is basically, yes, like that man can conquer this god or whatever. I thought that was fascinating. That was a good one.
Yeah. Jumping on to verses 15 and 16, which is what about you? Who do you say I am? And Simon Peter says, you're the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Just in passing, someday we've all got to ask that same question of ourselves and hopefully have the same answer as Peter.
Well, and this is what I had referenced a minute ago. And right after this, in verses 21 to 26, 7, you have then Jesus rebuking Peter for Peter saying, no, you're not going to get crucified. And so the two things are so juxtaposed. And I actually did have this moment where I was like, that was clever, Matthew. Because it hadn't occurred to me that he'd done it on purpose. It was just kind of like, in my mind, those things did happen one right after the other. And you always think it's so weird that they just happened right after the other, and it doesn't make sense. And then when you realize this whole passage took 6 to 8 months, that might not have happened right after, but Matthew put it right after on purpose. And then you go, oh, clever.
Yeah. One thing which did happen right after was verse 28, where Jesus says that, truly I tell you, some who are standing here will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. So he says that, and then within 5 days of that, he's jumped over into Matthew 17, which there's a segue we're about to do now.
Yes.
And after 6 days, Jesus took with him Peter, James, and John and led them up the mountain, and that's the transfiguration. So Jesus has said, some of you to the gathering, some of you are not going to be dead before you see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Within 6 days, there's the transfiguration, and they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom, because he's got Moses with him, etc. He's shining bright. He is the glory of the Son of Man revealed, and people haven't died. So it's only 6 days.
See now, mate, that's where I'm gonna say I don't think that's what it means, but it's all good. Yeah, I don't personally, I don't think that the transfiguration is what he's talking about there. I think he came 70 AD, and that's where, like, you're standing here, and that Jesus doesn't lie. He says you're standing here and you're going to see me coming in the clouds, like not just in the transfiguration, but literally riding on a cloud, if you will.
Okay. Yeah.
But that's a very, very big Little Season verse. And oftentimes what people will say is Jesus kept his word, is that he didn't, it sounds like, oh, well, soon, I'm coming soon. soon's not 2,000 years. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And so it's like, well, what does that mean? And I don't think we need to get too deep into language. It meant soon. And I think that's why he came within the lifetimes of the disciples who were standing there, and particularly Caiaphas when he talks to him. But regardless, and Miles had some fascinating theories on Mount of Transfiguration, which I think we've talked about. I think I mentioned that with you. But and again, here's Peter, bleh, like, hey, let's make booths, and you're just like, oh my gosh, Peter. And yet, I so would be right there, being like, hey, let me tell you about something. It's like, no, inappropriate, wrong time. Read the room. Stop. And that would be me, totally doing that. I literally wrote in the side of my Bible, Peter says dumb stuff, and so do I.
Yeah. In verse 3, just then there appeared before them Moses and Elijah talking with Jesus. Both Moses and Elijah died, were taken up to heaven, but no body was found to bury. Just saying.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the suggestion, is that those are the two witnesses. And yet for me, it's Enoch, because Enoch walked with God and was no more. And it says Moses died. We don't have a body, we don't have a burial place, but it says, the Bible says, and he died. So, but it doesn't say that about. Go ahead.
Yeah, the point being that both their bodies,
right,
you couldn't see the bodies, so it when
yeah.
they were
Well, and you can't see Jesus's body, and he died and resurrected. So who knows? I feel like with futurist eschatology, we get stuck on 2 or 3 pieces. Like, who are the two witnesses? What does the mark of the beast mean? And Carmen and I talked about this, and Carmen's not necessarily into Little Season, but she was saying, when they're asking him these questions with the stones in the temple, and look at this, and when will these things happen? His focus is, don't be deceived. Don't be deceived. And sure, he says some details, but here we are at this point, you guys saying, well, those details make sense for me to say this. And I'm saying, well, these details make sense for me to say that. So we're no less deceived than we were before, because we're still confused. But I loved her focus on it being about Jesus, and that don't lose your focus, because he is your focus. And even in this little encounter in the Mount of Transfiguration, Peter's answer, like, here, let's build booths. It's like, dude, it's about Jesus. It's not about Moses and Elijah. It's about Jesus. And you get to see it, but just like, shut your mouth.
Yeah. On the Moses, why Moses, we again have discussed that in the previous episode. And I love the fact that Moses walked with God, etc. But when he hit the stone at Meribah and God said, you've disobeyed me, you won't lead the people into the promised land. And that's what God said, you won't lead the people into it. Moses then took on that the wrong way and said, I won't go into the promised land.
Right.
But God didn't say that. He just said, no, you're not leading the people into it. And then however many thousand years later, here Moses is on the mountain with Jesus. Which mountain? It's in the promised land, which shows that Moses needs Jesus as well. And he made it. Love it.
Well, that's in this section of Exodus that we're reading, isn't it?
Yeah.
Today. Yes. Okay.
No, it's Deuteronomy.
No,
that's when the main quotes of it. Yeah.
Yes, but there is another. But there's a reference to it.
Yes,
okay, I'm like ready to flip I do. My glasses are over there, and I brought the big Kahuna this time.
Oh, the big one.
Yeah. So I'm ready to flip over. No, I think, but this is part of the problem in reading the Bible. And I did things crazy because I read backwards. But even such, if you were reading Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John versus John, Luke, Mark, and Matthew, it's the same thing. You're still reading the Gospels. Like if you were reading the New Testament from beginning to end, or end to beginning, doesn't matter. And they're so, it's funny because John wasn't like that, because John's not one of the synoptic Gospels. And yet I found a bunch of stuff in Luke that I was like, ooh, that's not in Matthew and Mark. And there's very few things that are in Matthew and Mark, but there are interesting ones, like Matthew doing the different genealogy, one through the mother's line and one through the father's line. But because you sit here and you're like, I've read this before. Surely I've read this before. Like, I've got to have read this before. And obviously I do the readings, and then I do a review recording. And so I do re-review. So I go over it again, but it's still, you think to yourself, I've read this before. Well, no, you're just in a different gospel. Again, the theme throughout the whole Bible. Remember what God did. Look what God did. Look what God does. Look at how he's protected you. Look at how faithful he is. Look at this. And then we're over here with the Israelites, like, where's the meat? I need something like a grumbling and complaining because we can't remember. And yeah, so I think it's there for a reason, but it is sort of funny.
Yeah, and not part of the readings that we're looking at, but it does remind me of Hannah's prayer around the time of Eli and so on, where Hannah, her prayer is just wonderful because it's all about God. It's not about her. It looks at God, what you have done, what you are doing, and therefore when you say you will do, I know you will do. And where does that leave me, Hannah? It leaves me in a place of gratitude. So thank you. Perfect prayer. Thank you, Hannah.
Really is. I think there's so much wealth in here. I've made fun of Heather and I laughing because Heather is just grossed out by the book of Leviticus and had to do verses of Leviticus. And yet I love the book of Leviticus and I think it's so much fun. And people are, that's so weird, Beth. That's just really weird. And I mean, no, I don't need to talk about emissions of semen or scaly bits and white leopard. Like, no, but the framework of this, if you have an understanding, when you read through the Old Testament, you see again, and you're talking about Moses striking the rock. These are so many prefigurations. God is the best prophet of them all, telling his own stuff. Like he's telling you
Yeah,
what's going to
yeah.
happen and that he's faithful. And he says it and he says it and he says it and he says it. And he's still saying it.
Yeah, and it took us on Leviticus, it took us however many thousand years for medicine to say, do you know what? Wash before you treat the patient and isolate them. And so that's what Leviticus says.
Right? Exactly.
But back to where we were.
Yes. Bunny trailed quite a bit there, but that's all right.
In verses 14, 15, 18, when the man approaches Jesus, kneels before him, says, have mercy on my son. He has seizures. He's suffering greatly. He often falls into the fire or the water. And you think, discern what's wrong and heal appropriately. Because you're hearing that, you think, ooh, something physical is going on. He's got seizures. That's physical. He keeps falling. That's about his balance and so on. But what does Jesus do? He rebukes the demon, spiritual. Out he comes, the boy's healed. So it's just that discernment. You don't, sorry, Peter, but you don't just rush in on these things. You discern first and then go.
Well, but the problems we see physical problems. And yet,
Mm-hmm.
what don't we see in the spirit? And whether there's an outworking of a spiritual problem that manifests itself in a physical problem. But yeah, I think there are pretty much all spiritual problems at the root of them because of the condition of man. It talks about that, about how you're not going to have any sickness if you obey me. And I
Mm.
underlined that because I thought, whoa, that's significant. No sickness. And your children will, like, no stillbirth, bunches of different things that God promises. But
Yeah.
in 18 at the beginning,
Yes.
so these sections, Luke 22, 24 to 30 is the first bit there, the truly the child. And then the next bit after that is actually Mark 10, 35 to 45. And this is all in Matthew 18, 1 to 6. And again, these tie together. He's saying the same things, but we obviously need to hear them again. It's kind of significant.
Yeah. Yeah. In Matthew 18, verse 20, for where two or three are gathered in my name, I am with them. And I've often wondered about that because Jesus is with each one of us, but he's saying, if two or three of you are gathered together, I'm with you. And it means that we as human beings, we're intended for relationship. And Jesus is that relationship with each one individual, but we are intended for relationship with each other as well. So kids, treat relationships well, treat the other people well, because it's a godly thing. When you have relationship, a friend, you're doing a godly thing by being a friend. You are meeting and representing Jesus in that friendship. There you go.
I have a 13-year-old who has made a profession of faith. It's all good. But sometimes, mom, you're doing Bible reading. It's not that exciting to her. Fair enough. Like, I kind of get that. But in the car, something will happen or somebody cuts in front of you. And then, oh, thank you, Jesus. And I'll look at her, I'll be like, amen me, because I want that extra oomph of two gathered, right? I want the
Yes,
amen
yes,
from the other person.
we're
And
in
it's like,
agreement here.
yes. Matthew 21. This is verse 5. The first part of that is Isaiah 62, 11 tell the daughter of Zion. And the second half of that is Zechariah 9:9. Behold, your kingdom is coming to you, humble and mounted on an ass, on a colt, the foal of an ass, donkey. And I would have been with the disciples. Hey, where should we have the Passover? Go into town. There's a dude carrying water and tell him the teacher, what? And how? Because he was fully human. Yes, he was God incarnate, all those things. And so I don't know if he got like extra downloads. I don't know how it works, but he knows all this stuff. And I just find it so funny that they go and there's the colt. If you are touching my horse, I'm like, whoa, what are you doing? Yet he has an answer for them. And that's part of his description to them. And who knows whether in the disciples' minds, they're like, yeah, what if I untie this and they yell at us? And then he adds that? I don't know. But how did he know? How did he know?
Fact that if he could just have said, go into town and get a donkey. That's all he needed to say. And then you would say, well, it's a big town. There's bound to be lots of donkeys, lots of colts. But he's going,
Right.
okay, go to town. And as you say, you'll see a bloke who's carrying water. Okay, that's less of a common thing. Follow him and go into the house he is. And there's so many things have to line up for what Jesus said to be true.
Right.
And they all lined up. Every one of them.
Every time. Yes. All right. So Exodus, our trek is from 16. I loved the particular. So I've got the big Bible with the 4 versions. And see, now I've got to put the glasses on. Oh, mercy me. Yeah. Exodus 16. It's amazing how clear this becomes. The second half of it. That I may prove them, whether they will walk in my ways or not. Prove, meaning testing. So, and it does say in the other versions say, I'm going to test them. And yet this version, this Revised Standard, which is not even New Revised Standard because this Bible is printed in 1978, prove them. Like when you make bread, you go through a proofing process, testing it, checking it. And I was like, ooh, that was it was just different vocabulary that had me stop for a second and go, he's testing us. Okay. Yeah. Makes sense.
Interesting. In Exodus 16, 11 to 26, basically this is the bit where the Lord is saying to Moses, I've heard the grumbling. I'm going to produce the manna and the quail. So quail in the morning, manna in the evening. And basically it's don't store it up because of your own desire, because God will provide as and when you need. Trust in him, not in yourself. And in following God's command is then God saying, and store up for the Sabbath, which is that the Sabbath is a special day. It's a day of rest. So I will provide, and I will even provide during your time of rest. He's got everything covered.
Well, and we've got to do it all wrong. This tells you, right, that some of them collected too much. And maggots, worms, lovely, right? And some of them maybe were hesitant and didn't quite collect enough. And it's always enough. It's just an interesting thing of where God's got it prescribed. And he's just, the beginning of that chapter said to you, I'm testing you. And yet there's some of them that have to try it. And I will hearken back to the same story that I've told before when my child was about 2 or 3 and we're baking. And I told her, I'm going to move this, I think it was macaroni and cheese, and I move it over to the sink. Don't look, made eye contact with a 2-year-old. Don't touch it. Yes, mama, like, yeah, nod, ham straight into this. Like, is that my kid or what? Oh, dear. But yeah, so, and she was fine. Thank goodness. But it's just so funny to me because that's Moses is saying, don't do it. And they go do it.
Yeah.
I loved in 31, now the house of Israel called its name manna. It was like coriander seed with the taste of it was like wafers made with honey. And I underlined that and thought, ooh, yum, wafers made with honey. That would be good. And yet they eat it for 40 years. Okay, here's manna. And then all of a sudden, and it's not in this section, obviously, we've already blown past it, but the Israelites, once they hit the promised land and they can eat of the land, right before they cross, they go out and look for manna. And Josh was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? We're done. We're done with that.
17 verses 5 and 6. This is the bit. So this is the first time. And the Lord is saying to Moses, go out in front of the people because they're all saying they're thirsty. Take the staff, the same one with which you struck the Nile, and stand in front of the rock of Horeb and strike the rock and water will come out and you can have a drink. So this is the time when God says, this is exactly what I'd like you to do. And it is exactly what Moses does.
Yep.
And all is good.
Yes. until. Isn't that the way with us though? We're trucking along. We're doing. Oh yeah, I got it. I got this whole faith thing. I got it. I got it. Right turn. And
Yeah.
then the
And
Lord's like,
also there's a sense of Moses thinking, well, the last time I struck the rock and it worked. So there's precedent. So I'm just going to do the same thing again, even though God said do something different. But no, 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 no. I trust myself and my memory. Really?
well, and Carmen brought up a brilliant point. She said that speaking was a problem for Moses. Like, did he have a stutter? He
Yeah.
never wanted to speak, and so he was like,
Mm.
"Oh, I struck it. It worked last time. I'll do that." But it was in fear. It was in unbelief because he was told to speak and he didn't want to speak.
Yes.
Yeah.
Big insight there. Yeah.
Indeed. I loved how Jethro in 18:11, now that I know that the Lord is greater than all gods because he delivered the people from under the hand of the Egyptians. And this is Midianite priest. So is Moses' father-in-law, but can you imagine that that's your son-in-law? Is like, oh, okay. And I also had a note here. Is it this particular? Yeah, it's this passage. We don't know when Zipporah and his two sons leave.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't say Moses sent Zipporah away. It never says that. But obviously, the inference is he had to have done that because here's his father-in-law bringing them back. So,
Yep. And once his father-in-law has said what he has to say, it also says that he left. It doesn't say that Zipporah went away with her father. So I'm hoping she stayed with Moses.
I think that isn't the complaining from Miriam and Aaron a little bit later? They complain about his Cushite wife, which is a really misleading thing
Mm.
because Cush, she was a Midianite. And so we have some confusion here as to it's not that his wife was of a certain race.
I'm going to wind us back right at the very start of Exodus 18, verse 3. Moses says, I have become a foreigner in a foreign land. From my forthcoming book, my next book, which is Ripples of Anglo-Saxon Christianity, what I'm talking about is Wales and the Welsh. Now, within the United Kingdom, there's Great Britain, which is Scotland, England, Wales, and Northern Ireland. And the Anglo-Saxons called them and their lands Wealas, from which you get Wales. And that means foreigners. So quite literally, the Welsh are foreigners in a foreign land because they're the Welsh in Wales, foreigners in a foreign language, foreign land. The Welsh themselves call themselves the Cymry, which means fellow countrymen. So they didn't see themselves as foreigners, but it's just interesting that
Interesting.
Moses says, I'm a foreigner in a foreign land. And that's exactly what was put on the Welsh.
Yeah. The I have friends in Finland, and Finland is not called Finland. Just like if you say Germany, Germania, right? It's Deutschland.
Yeah.
The Finnish, it's Suomi. And sometimes to me, it's kind of like, okay, if you say Hapon or Japan, okay, we're just pronouncing the same word differently.
Mm.
Suomi and Finland don't sound anything alike, nor do Germany and Deutschland. This is sort of weird. The Welsh didn't see themselves as foreigners. I like that. That's an interesting one.
Yeah. So we'll then skip past the Jethro bringing Zipporah back and wondering if that was an early form of early marriage guidance and reconciliation, hoping it was.
It's a good one. Yes.
And then I bounce into Exodus 19, verse 7 and 8. So that one, Moses returns to the mountain, calls the elders together, and all the people respond together. We will do everything the Lord has commanded. Moses brought the people's answer back to the Lord, etc.
No, they
Now,
won't.
so I've recently been reading 1 Samuel and Eli and his corrupt sons, Hophni and Phinehas. Was it Jill or Jamie that said
It's Jenny. Jenny, my friend
Jen-
Jenny. Yeah.
Jenny,
HP sauce.
HP sons and HP sauce? So
Yep.
Hophni and Phinehas. His grandson was Ahijah. Now consider what the people said to Saul. So what the people said to Moses was, we will do everything the Lord commands. Good. What the people said to Saul in 1 Samuel was, his men, this is when he says, we'll go up to the Philistines, we'll plunder them, we'll kill them all by night, it'll be good. And they said, we will do whatever you think is best. So not the Lord, but they're saying, Saul, whatever you say, we're doing it. And then it says, but the priest said, let's ask God first. And who was the priest? The priest was Ahijah, the grandson of Phinehas.
Wow.
So there's a bit of further reconciliation down the generations as well.
Yeah. Well, and the connection pieces of that these people are related to each other and that there's a memory there. I mean, if it's his grandpa, then yeah, he and how much overlapping was there? Interesting, good one. I like that. Now, when all the people perceived the thunderings and lightnings and the sound of trumpet, so, and this is God trumpeting, not a human
Uh-huh.
trumpet, and the mountains smoking, the people were afraid and trembled, and they stood far off and said to Moses, "You speak to us and we will hear, but let not God speak to us lest we die." And they just kind of go, "Yeah, no, not doing that. Let's have you intercede for us." But of course, his intercession, when he leaves, then they go, who knows what's he tripped and bumped his head. He's not even coming down the mountain. Right. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Like, which is it? Do you want him to intercede for you? And are you willing to wait and to trust? Or we will do what the Lord says.
So then we get to the Ten Commandments. And
Yes.
interestingly to me, before God gets to the Ten Commandments, he says, I am the Lord your God. So he reminds Moses who he is, the relationship. I'm the Lord your God who rescued you from the land of Egypt. So he reminds Moses what he has done, and the place of your slavery, what it was. So God is just reinvesting in that relationship. I'm the Lord and I do these things for you. I help you. I guide you. I lead you. Then he goes into the actual commandments of, okay, to have that strengthened relationship, don't have any other God before me, and so on, and launches into it. And I noticed the first four of the Ten Commandments, they're about how humans should relate to God. Even God puts relationship first. We've talked a bit about relationship already. God puts that first. Don't have any other God before me. Don't make yourself an idol of any kind or image. So it's all about the humans and our relationship. Verse 5, verse 5, he says, I'm a jealous God. But God is jealous for us. He's not jealous of us. He wants the best for us. And the best is for us to be in true relationship with him. So that's what he wants. So, like I say, he's not a petty jealous of Beth, I like that t-shirt you're wearing. I wish I had one myself. No, not that. And then the last six commandments are all about how people should treat each other. Again, relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
Um,
exactly.
the fifth commandment, honor your father and mother. That is the only commandment that has a reason why, a so what. Honor your father and mother so that you may live long in the land that God is giving you.
Yeah.
Again, relationship.
Yep.
Verse 26 in Exodus 20.
Go for it.
So in that one, that's where it says, do not approach my altar by going up steps. If you do, someone might look up under your clothing and see your nakedness. Just being Scottish and wearing a kilt, I can sympathize with that. That's all I'm saying, folks.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Now, in Exodus 21, in verse 22, it's talking about suppose two men are fighting. They accidentally strike a pregnant woman. She gives birth prematurely. And this is where it says, verse 24, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. And so many people take that as being vengeance. See, it's biblical vengeance. We get to do the same that they did to us. Wait, let's just hang on a minute. An eye for an eye is specifically for an injury to a pregnant woman in a fight that's not of her making, and she's an innocent victim in it. It's it's not vengeance. So yeah, there you go.
Interesting, because we think it's applied universally across the board. Truly, there were lots and lots of provisions put and boundaries put around the various interactions. You have a
Yeah.
guideline of what would be used to make a decision.
Mm. And then in Exodus 22 verses 22, 24, that is similar. You must not exploit a widow or an orphan. If you do exploit them in any way and they cry out to me, I will hear their cry, my anger will blaze against you, and I will kill you with the sword. Then your wives will be widows and
Right?
your children will be fatherless. So it's interesting that the punishment and crime prevention, if you exploit widows and children, then you are going to make your own wives and children be in the exact same situation, available to be exploited in the same way. Is that what you want? Really?
Yep. This is right after, oh, I want meat. We want meat. Here, have some meat. It'll come, you'll have so much meat, it'll be coming out your nose. So
Yes.
it really is. God is very, very apt at aligning the consequences of your actions in a similar fashion. Sort of scary in a good way.
We have touched a bit on where the people are all very good. And we personally, I'm very good at saying, Lord, I'm going to do exactly what you tell me. And then I do the opposite. And in Exodus 23, verse 2, even says, do not follow the crowd in doing wrong. That sums up the whole of society, really.
Right?
We just do.
It does. I had 23:10 underlined that the land needs Sabbath. And
Mm.
so often, by the time you get to Jesus's era, the scribes and Pharisees have gone so far off the rails. There are all these provisions, but yet if an ox falls down a well or a donkey, you go get it out. You don't leave the
Mm.
beast to suffer or wait, like, no, you call everybody, even if it's the Sabbath. And then you're working, but you're rescuing. And the heart of the Sabbath of having rest when all things are normal, they just didn't get it at all.
And yet, going into verse 12 of that, you've got 6 days each week for your ordinary work, and on the seventh, rest. So it's building a rhythm of rest. One of my favorite sayings, I wish it was mine, but rest is not something you do when you're too exhausted to do anything else. You build that rhythm into your life of when to rest and how to rest.
And that's something that the Western church does not understand at all. We just do not have any sense of this whatsoever. Here in America, the shops are even all open anymore. But it was okay, I can't go shopping. What? Like that's not what this is about.
Verse 29, 31, they're saying, God says, I will not drive them, that's the people in the promised land, out in a single year, because the land would become desolate and the wild animals would multiply and threaten you. I'll drive them out little by little. So God is saying, if I just gave you everything at the one time, you would not be able to cope. You would not be able to manage it. So I'm going to do it incrementally as you build up your experience, build up the population, etc.
Yeah.
So again, God gives us what we need when we need.
Exactly. In 24:15,
Mhm.
that basically the glory of the Lord covers the mountain. And this is why all this stuff is going on. And I wrote down a note. I said, this is why the people think he's dead. Because if you look at what the information that Moses got, the tabernacle plans, the frames, the bases, the direction of the ephod and all the clothing and all of this, like there was a lot that got downloaded, not just the 10 commandments. Now that was the highlight, that was the header. Hey, these are the rules, how you should behave. And yet there was so much talked about in that time between Moses and God. And yet the
Mm.
people are kind of out there going, well, I'm bored. Okay, what's going on? Or, hey, Aaron, want to help?
Yeah. And in verse 17 of that, to the Israelites in the foot of the mountain, the glory of the Lord appeared at the summit like a consuming fire. Where God is, there is fire, because God is purifying, testing, etc. Now, from Moses' perspective, he's seen it and done it before. The burning bush, which
Yeah.
did not consume. God said, come here, you're on holy ground, take your shoes off, etc. So Moses gets this idea of the fire, but the people go, look, mountain's on fire. That must be the end of Moses.
Right?
I'll sprint you through some from verse 1. Make the tabernacle with 10 curtains of finely twisted linen. So our own outer garments, clean, pure. Do we choose to be and do what is good and pure
Oh,
for Jesus?
very good.
And then it says, make them in the colors blue, purple, and scarlet, or deep red. Purple is royalty. Blue is heaven. Scarlet is for cleansing blood. That's Jesus. And then it says that there's cherubim are woven into them by a skilled worker. The cherubim guarded the ark. So let the Holy Spirit be woven into you to guard your heart, the
Nice.
center point with you. All the curtains are to be the same size. So it's not so much the same size, but it's the fact that the exact dimensions are given. 28 cubits long, 4 cubits wide. 4 apparently is the number for earth. 7 is Jesus' completion. 4 times 7 is 28, which is the cubits of the curtain. Make the loops out of blue material. The curtains are us. The blue loops is heaven, as I said, blue for heaven. And the gold clasps that they have is Jesus. So Jesus in heaven brings unity
Wow.
to the body. So again, surprise, surprise, there's a reason for everything. Bounce on to Exodus 27. We got in verse 9, it says, make a courtyard for the tabernacle, the south side be 100 cubits long, and to have curtains of finely twisted linen. So this is a separation from the holy and the ordinary or the secular. And holy, the word holy actually means set apart.
Mm.
So again, the tabernacle has got to be just like that. And it says in verse 21 that they've got to keep the lamps burning before the Lord from evening till morning. The lamp is to keep burning, both, again, the fire of God's presence, and we talked about fire before, so the fire in that lamp, and also that Jesus is the light of the world. He is the lamp. So keep that present.
I loved in 32, I underlined just this verse in 9. I underlined, it's a stiff-necked people, and it's not the only place that it says this. But it's like, yeah, here, this is what we'll do. Yes, we'll do what the Lord says. Now you out. Now you out. You
Yeah,
out.
yeah. And you being a horsey gal that obviously stiff-necked is, imagine, how are the people led? They're led by the halter, the bridle. If you've got a stiff neck, you're not going to be
Right? Yeah.
led.
Yep. Yeah.
You're
You
going
have
to be opposite.
exactly. You get on a horse, and if it's a new horse and you've not ridden it, you flex its head this way and you flex its head that way, so that if it runs amok, you can do an emergency stop.
In verse 10 and onwards for that one, where God says, leave me alone so my anger may burn against them and I'll destroy them. And he says to Moses, I will make you into a great nation. So he's saying all that stuff about Abraham and Isaac, been them, I'm going to start again. And Moses, from a place of submission, he dares to challenge God, but he does it in a place of submission. He reminds God, you are God. You are the Lord. This is my insight. This is my input. And he's saying, you were such a great God to lead the people out of slavery, out of Egypt. And then what? You got bored? You got fed up? You
Yeah.
couldn't handle it?
It's such a clever retort. Like, not
Yeah.
snart
And
and
you say, well, what's next, please?
manipulative, but like you're saying, from a place of humility, but daring to say, hang on a minute, God, you can't do that way.
Yeah. And I think God just wanted Moses to speak it out. So that, again, we've talked earlier about how Moses and his words, he wasn't happy with his words, but here God is getting out of him. Moses, speak it out. Tell
Yeah.
me what's on your heart. I know what's on your heart. Tell yourself what's on your heart. Declare it.
Right. So, got to mention, there's a golden calf. They think Moses is dead. He's gone up the mountain. We've mentioned this, and out pops a calf. I don't know how that
Yes.
happened. Like,
Who
Aaron,
knew?
dude, if you're gonna lie, let's add some sophistication to it here. This is just, oh, I don't know what happened. It just popped out of the fire. What? It's like a 2-year-old lying or something. No, he did it. Like, what?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just so bizarre.
And it's also, he did it. So Aaron saying, it's not my fault. It's going,
Yeah.
look at them.
I wonder if that was an echo of Eve, like the Adam saying, "Oh, the woman gave it to me. I'm not guilty," or something like that.
Moses goes back to the Lord and says, what a great sin these people have committed. So it's them. Moses was up the mountain. It was nowhere near, nothing to do with Moses. But in a great bit of leadership, Moses says, he explains it. They've committed a great sin. They've made themselves gods of gold. But now he says, please forgive their sin. But if not, blot me out of the book you've written. Let me take the punishment. So it's just an incredible, it's a sign of leadership where he says, you have given me these people, so they're my people, and I'm in submission to you, and so I'll take the hit for them.
Whereas previously in the book, he was like, "What am I supposed to do with them? How am I supposed to feed them? You like, they're yours, not mine." And yet here he's completed the circle, and he is their leader, and he's pleading on their behalf, even though they're being such absolute stiff-neck such and suches.
Yeah. And that leads in just to wind off with Exodus 33, verses 15 and 16, where Moses says to God, if your presence does not go with us, do not send us. How will anyone know that you're pleased with me and your people unless you go with us? So Moses is saying, from this position of submission, he dares greatly, and he realizes that it's not the Jewish people per se. That's not why they are special. they're special because God is with them. So if God is not their God, if they're not with the God, then what distinguishes them? So Moses is saying, it's you. You make the difference. So we need you. And if you're not here, then the whole game's a bogey.
Yeah. Which is where we have come to the end. So we have only Genesis left to read and the rest of Matthew.
Quite something. From me, I think this is my last Sunday slot of, so
Yes.
I have with you cantered so often, and it's time just to trot and to walk and to climb off the horse.
Well, I have valued every moment of it and your wisdom, and geeking out on language with you is a delight. Obviously, everyone else might think we're a bit mad, but it's all good.
Indeed. Thank you so much.
Take care.